3 key NFC storylines for 2022. That and more this week on the Footballguys Dynasty Show. And Jordan, it's time for these quarterbacks to step up. The NFC has a bunch of them in the crosshairs, young or coming back on the reclamation path, and they need to prove themselves this year.
Yeah, you were saying to me before the show started, we were just talking about how the news just feels like it's week 6. We already have news, Kyler Murray's extension. We could get into that. I can't get over the contract itself. Trey Lance basically being handed the reins in San Francisco. That's a notable development as well. So we're watching that. How does Jameis recover? Where's Carson Wentz? I can't believe I found myself saying that I think Carson Wentz is probably undervalued in Dynasty. It's a strange place to be. But the big one, I think, really in terms of, impact overall is Jalen Hurts. And I was actually doing some research today for a story an article that I'm writing for the site. And do you want to guess who Jalen Hurts' number 1 red zone target was last year? Do you just want to take a guess at who that person was?
Himself. Jack Stoll.
No.
Deep.
Kenneth Gainwell. Wow. And I just think when you get a full season of a healthy, ready to go Dallas Goedert, a full season of AJ Brown, another year of Devonta Smith, you're just going to be able to see. I think you're going to get a full on audition for Jalen Hurts with a fair shake instead of something that I think was less than that last year. So lots of big stories here, and we could do a dramatic reading of Kyler Murray's contract, but I've already done that once this week, and I'm not sure I can get through it again.
Yeah, I have committed, just for the record, I have my own contract, and I will commit at least 4 hours a week thinking about Dynasty Fantasy Football. Joe, you have that in writing on the show, in print, in ink, signed by Little Orphan Annie herself. Deep cut. So I will say Jalen Hurts, I have the widest range of redraft hubris confidence in what he actually produces. Mm-hmm. Bottom line for fantasy production versus uncertainty about the future and pause about his dynasty cost and job security there. And I could say the same thing about Trey Lance as well. I think they both could be top 5, top 8 this season, and yet we still get to January and have big questions about, are they the guy? Mm-hmm. The NFL lens is a lot different than Dynasty, and what did you help me this current season? So I think those two are the big ones. I think now we have, it's not like Arizona was going to let Kyler Murray go. So that wasn't I had some people, does this raise Kyler Murray in your valuation in Dynasty? No. I mean, they're not going to let him go. So unless you see some kind of trade, he was going to be playing for Arizona for the foreseeable future, multiple years, kind of lens. But this whole, hey, you need to commit to your job. I can't imagine if you were just to put up cue cards and read what is in Kyler Murray's contract to Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, 15 other quarterbacks over the last, Philip Rivers, just keep going. That any quarterback that has accomplished a lot over a long lens, they would all be like, that doesn't need to be in a contract. You either are or you aren't. So I don't want to go into a big diatribe, but Kyler Murray, time to step up, right? Once you start paying a quarterback, we've said this before, it's all jokes and rainbows and lollipops when you're on a rookie contract because they can build everything around you. When you start getting big bucks, it's on you. And Kyler Murray, we saw in the playoffs, we've seen when he's been dinged up and not running around like a joystick. I don't know if he's up to it. So we'll see. I don't know. Playing Madden probably helps him a lot. So we'll see.
Yeah, the some of the computer recognition there, right? Looking at the screen and be able to read defenses. I think he should have probably negotiated that better. Playing Madden, I think would have.
And you know what? I'm gonna judge Cliff Kingsbury on should we listen to what he's saying? Because he said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna see some big role for Rondale Moore." Okay, if you do that, I'm gonna start believing things you say. But don't you dare tease me. Don't you pull that rug out from under me. But then also on the list, Carson Wentz, Jameis Winston, Daniel Jones. We've already listed almost half the NFC. Critical who is going, and some cross section of this list is going to step up, and a part of this list is going to shrivel. I will say, to me, one of the most fascinating watches of this whole list is Jameis Winston. Mm-hmm. I want to see big weapons, and you've mentioned before Alvin Kamara. Plan on him being available legal wise for this season, and until something changes, that is what we're looking at. So quality weapons. We'll see about Michael Thomas. I keep going back and forth on Michael Thomas, but Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, these are upgrades He had none of this last year. So that's a big one. You've been kidding me for years about Carson Wentz. So I think this is a golden opportunity for Washington and for Carson Wentz. This can be beneficial for both. Daniel Jones, critical year. I don't know if either of us have huge confidence in him, but you can speak to Brian Daboll. So if he can turn Josh Allen into from a concerning prospect to the best quarterback arguably in the NFL, I think Daniel Jones can turn into serviceable under that same squinted prism. So that's honestly, that's the top thing in the NFC for me.
Let me ask you a question. Out of Carson Wentz, Daniel Jones, and Jameis Winston, if you said one of them is going to be a top 10 dynasty quarterback at some point in his career, do you think anyone in that range has that in their range of outcomes? And if so, who do you think the best bet is for that?
We know we've been scoring. See, the problem is all of them have scorned us at least once, some of them multiple times.
Some of us more than others.
What's weird is I would say Daniel Jones has the least amount of scorn of that list, but I actually view him as the least likely to put it all together. But you're saying if it's possible, I don't know if Jameis went. I don't know. I'll say from getting all the way to top 10 dynasty, which is a huge leap for all these guys, and it's a big achievement for any of them. That I will say, and these are single digit odds, that Daniel Jones, because I can see this perfect storm of Brian Daboll, healthy Saquon Barkley, and if Daniel Jones can just turn the ball over a little less. And he has mobility more than the other two guys. I can squint and see it. It might be 6%, but I think it's higher than the 3% or 4% of these other guys. Now, I don't think his odds of being in the top 15 are higher than Jameis Winston, for example, but top 10, top 8, you start going really high. I just think there's too much built up, just getting really tight. It makes you nervous when you say Jameis Winston, all the roller coaster ride we've been through, and saying he gets all the way into the good graces like that.
Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead.
Well, let's go to running back. So the second key NFC storyline is two monster names that we've seen high up in startup drafts, high up in valuation. And you've mentioned before the allegiance these guys get compared to similar non-productive and non-healthy stretches for these other players is just historic. Saquon Barkley, as well as Christian McCaffrey, it's time to stay healthy. It's time to dominate. We've seen both of those things with both of those players, but not recently.
Yeah, I think I'd push back a little bit on the not recently thing. We saw it last year in the short sample size with McCaffrey, and then he got hurt. Right, so we have seen it, and we've seen it much more recently than we've seen it with Barkley. And I would point to, there was he basically had the big rookie season, and then it's been a lot of question about ceiling and production since then. I think McCaffrey, it hasn't been a question of whether or not he can produce. Like a Christian McCaffrey touches worth more than anything else at the running back position, and that has been so. I think with him, between the two of them, I feel much more confident about McCaffrey just because, the market feels a lot more confident. I'm not going out on a limb saying this, but this has been not some recurrent injuries, right? This has kind of been a variety of different things, and that stuff happens. And as a result, you're getting him at a discount. But he has not shown us in any way that he isn't if given the opportunity between him and Jonathan Taylor, and they both get 17 games, McCaffrey is going to be the better running back. Right?
Well, I think the better question would be Jonathan Taylor plus 5 points per game versus
Correct.
McCaffrey. I think on a per game basis, that's probably the better head-to-head battle.
But I don't think people would think that, right?
Yeah,
what's really interesting, and I've been doing some writing and thinking about this, if you're going to address the running back position, how do you do it? And I think right now the fool's bet is to go up and get someone like Jonathan Taylor, right? Because what you're doing is you are buying at the height of their luck. right? You're buying at the height of
healthy for the whole year.
Uh-huh.
It had some huge runs. Not that he's not
Uh-huh.
capable of that, but banking on that, he's not
Right.
projected to be, and probably isn't going to be elitely involved in the passing game.
Right.
So
whereas with a guy like McCaffrey, with a guy like Kamara, I still think that they have more ceiling in the range of outcomes.
Well, they have
than
more
Jonathan
outs.
Taylor does.
They have more outs
Right.
too, because
100%.
even if they have 5 rushing touchdowns, well, 85 catches cures a lot of ills. So you don't have to. And
Right.
this with McCaffrey, it's a weird sort of thing. If you rewind 2 to 3 years, and we said this about Mahomes, it's weird. Both of those guys strangely accessible in the marketplace this offseason. Right. Where you say, if you'd rewound and McCaffrey was, I don't know if at that point he was the go away running back 1, he was going 101 in startups. I'm not in touch with where ADP was years ago like that, but he was way up there at 23, 24. He hadn't had 2 years marred by missed games that he's had so far. But man, Mahomes being accessible, McCaffrey being accessible, and you could potentially have traded for both of those guys in the last 6 to 8 months, where you already had the rest of a team built and you're just plugging those guys in. And I think the point you're making, and I think you got off of it really quickly, and I just want to double back on it, is if you are going to actually trade for running back and you're not going to do some, I'm selling high on a guy and shifting to a low guy, like an arbitrage within the position, if you're actually buying, because we do the more volume approach, you have to shoot for the absolute who can wreck the game ceiling. And if that's Kamara, because people are worried about he's 27 and, this suspension, he's going to miss half this year, and you're getting a discount for that, or, I'm getting Zeke at running back 25, or I'm getting Fournette at running back 23, or whatever it is, or Connor, but McCaffrey is another one where you just go, I can see 20 plus points per game. Like, you have to kind of shoot that high to actually acquire that position via trading, which is something you alluded to.
Totally. And I think like the way to do it is you have to A, shoot high, and B, do it at a discount, right? I think it's the combination of both is when you can really have success. I don't like trading a lot of assets for running backs just because we can do it with such a volume approach. I think the exception to that is when you get guys that have that, really have that combo. And I think when you look at a guy like McCaffrey on a per touch basis, like, he's just it's crazy. And the same thing with Kamara. Like, they're just in a different stratosphere in terms of what they can offer on a per touch basis. And I don't even think Kamara's like usage that last year was all that great. They ran it a ton, so we got a ton of that. Like, they didn't really do a lot in the passing game with him. There's already talk that they want to get back to that. So I think both of those guys, and it just gives me a little bit of pause with Barkley, because I'm not sure I can make that same statement with the same conviction, which gives me some pause. Again, you're betting on Daniel Jones, right? There's a lot of moving pieces there that just gives me a little bit of pause with him in this conversation.
Last one, and the go-to phrase for me this whole year, and I think I'm gonna try for months at a time not to say his actual name, which is, his name is Aaron Rodgers, but I think the applicable term now is Cameron Poe. We're going to start calling him Cameron Poe. And that honestly lit up my world today when I saw him walk in. You had the flowing hair. You had the white sleeveless shirt. He looked exactly straight off of Con Air, like from one of the scenes. So Cameron Poe, who does he elevate in the Green Bay passing game? It is wide open season, and there are going to be 1 to 2 clear-cut winners. We want winners. So with Cameron Poe and Aaron Rodgers, who does he elevate as the third critical question in the NFC?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Allen Lazard's probably the best bet. I mean, just when you look at him, right, it's a ton of his usage was the goal line stuff, right? He had 8 touchdowns last year on 40 receptions, right? And that's just over his expectation. He's expected for about 6.7. So when you just think of how that is constructed, it's a lot of red zone work, right? He's one of the leaders in that. And you lose Adams, who was a game wrecker in the red zone. Sort of where does that turn? It could turn to Lazard. I don't know if he has the volume to make a super big difference, right? That would be the thing that I would have some pause with. But when you've looked historically, the beneficiary of Devontae Adams being out in his career has been Aaron Jones. And I think that would be, I think I've sold Allen Lazard for a second in a couple different spots. I think Aaron Jones probably fits in the conversation with McCaffrey, with Alvin Kamara as being guys that have running back one in the range of outcomes that aren't being valued at that right now.
Yeah, and at 27 years old, again, another guy that we've started to see it leak out of his dynasty market value. So yeah, that passing game, because Aaron Rodgers, it's funny. You start looking up stuff about touchdown rate at tight ends, at wide receivers. You see a lot of Aaron Rodgers paired weapons over the years because, I mean, I remember the James Jones season, Jordy Nelson for years at a time. You see guys that are 10%, 15%. You mentioned, I think, Lazard. I was doing the back of the napkin math while you were talking, about 20% last year. So, and honestly, you start talking about resume. Lazard in camp, has been, in tow has been the one that has the biggest resume with the team. And then you say Robert Tonyan as well. Now I know he's currently, he's either on PUP or not practicing. So he's one to monitor going into the season. I don't think Josiah DeGuara has quite the upside. We've seen it from Tonyan once. And I know last year was a horrific partial season before he was out for the rest of it. And then you got Sammy Watkins, tough to trust, but he's at least done it in the NFL. Do you get the perfect storm for a month at some point during this season? But man, it's a lot of question marks.
What about Will Fuller?
Exactly. And we were looking at Julio,
happened, right?
Fuller. Yeah, right. It could have been an addition. And Fuller is now, memory serves, is he the last one out there? Julio was one.
Yeah. Fuller, I think, really
Fuller might be the last one out there. What can you get from him, if not a trade? So, again, it feels wide receiver. I don't think you can trust a lot of these younger guys personally. You got Christian Watson already on the PUP. And, I mean, anytime, I always say the asterisk, you get a rookie wide receiver with a quarterback that is discerning and tough to trust young players, and they're missing reps. I mean, the chances of a September, October arrival is like almost zero. Mm-hmm. Every day feels like you just add another week they're going to be irrelevant to start the year. And if you add up 2 weeks of missed time for all these reps on the practice field, I mean, just fast forward to November right now. I mean, if at all, right? I mean, we haven't seen it from all these notable Green Bay receivers. It wasn't their first year with Aaron Rodgers that they started to do it at all. And Amari Rodgers, I mean, not trusted ever. And now suddenly he's going to be trusted a lot. That also feels like a leap. It feels like it's a progression sort of thing. So like you said, Lazard, probably the most likely answer. Sammy Watkins, can he stay healthy? But Robert Tonyan, and like you said, Aaron Jones. Sometimes the answer is the easiest one, and a lot of people want to stretch it to just ancillary, complete blind dart throws.
Amari Rodgers ran 41 routes last year.
Right. Just let's be honest. And again, day two wide receiver that was not overly productive in college.
Right.
So you open with that. You say year one, irrelevant. And now with a discerning quarterback. Mm-hmm. So you can preach opportunity all you want. It's wide open and vacated targets and all this stuff, but that's still not the easy button or easy answer in this situation. But again, Aaron Rodgers, he can elevate almost anything if he chooses. Just he's not going to choose those guys. That's kind of what we're saying.
Right.
So again, and also I think I mentioned it in previous shows. I'm just excited to see what Aaron Rodgers' market value is in January. At what, 38, 39? Mm-hmm. Yep, but still can put it in a bread box.
Hey, Cole Beasley's another name. Actually, Odell Beckham Jr. is out there too. I don't think I don't know how realistic that is, but
answer may
Cole
not be on the
Beasley's the one where you could all of a sudden be like, like you could sort of look at that and be interested. There was some news on him being potentially, having a decent market, better than I actually suspected. Was the news report today. So we'll see there with him as well.
Chad Parsons, Jordan McNamara, episode 113 of the Football Guys Dynasty Show. Reminder about shop.footballguys.com. You want to look like a champion with that Football Guys official gear and merch. Sport it for your fantasy drafts coming up. And when you're hosting the trophy, you're putting it on InstaFace. You want to really sport what got you there. And again, we want winners. You want to subscribe to that daily football email, but what you want is the quality designs and materials with hats, shirts, outerwear, coffee mugs, and more. Shop.footballguys.com. We've got some trades to discuss this week, and actually one that reached out, a subscriber, a listener, over email. So I wanted to put this up in the show, and they want to talk about the mechanics and the thought process of a deal like this. So it's a 16-team league, relatively shallow, but again, 16 teams, so you're stretching out the talent across the teams. The team with the 101, so pretty good at running back, they ended up trading it for Gabriel Davis and a 23 first that looks like a non-playoff team. And he said, I would love to hear the thought process on this deal, passing on Breece Hall, and the chance of having big time core options at running back, but going with wide receiver and then just kicking the can to 23 first. Can you talk through what that process was potentially for that team that made the move?
Yeah. So, I mean, just I don't know the specifics in this. So, but let's just say as a general rule, when someone says that it's guaranteed to be between 101 and 108, which in this case is non-playoff because it's 16 team is what I'm assuming. That's the assumption. There's no guarantee about anything along those lines, right? We could go back with I could give you a whole bunch of recent examples of teams that on paper looked like clear-cut bye teams that didn't make the playoffs because of injuries or a host of other factors, and a bunch of teams that looked like absolute destined top 3 picks that ended up playing deep into December. So we treat those picks as more random than any sort of guarantee. But I understand, like, hey, there's more to it than that or something like that. But just as a general rule, don't think that a pick isn't going to be, especially in a situation like this, if there's divisions and stuff like that can get really weird, and teams that shouldn't get in the playoffs get in the playoffs, especially as you get sort of quirky in a 16-team league. So just for what that's worth, I would just stay and pick Breece Hall. Would be my suggestion here. I would take Jonathan Taylor, take Najee Harris, and I'd take Breece Hall, and you can start 2 running backs. You could start 2 flex, right? And I think that's going to be a pretty good core for you. I think you're going to end up bludgeoning people. I understand the idea of trying to get future first because people think they're undervalued. The problem is I don't think you get full enough value for Breece Hall. I mean, Hall right now, I mean, we're looking at, this is just a regular, this isn't a super flex, right? This is just a regular start 1 quarterback league. I mean, when you look at where Hall is at the position, just overall, he's 202. And over the past month in terms of startup drafts, that have just 1 quarterback in them, right? I mean, you're giving up a first round in this format. You're giving up a first round startup pick for a shot at a random future first. I don't love that. So I would take Hall, and I would just build off my depth that way.
Yeah, and I'll feature a couple different things just to kind of support the same point, which is Breece Hall, top 1% in my projection model for the running back position. He checks every box. He's big enough. He tested well, top 5% in athleticism score, elite scores in rushing, receiving. He's 21.5 years old. And if you say, well, he's not round 1 and he went to the Jets. Well, first of all, the Jets is a subjective sort of thing. The landing spot, we've talked about that before. He went early in the second round, 36 overall. So we don't get a lot of first round running backs. You would prefer that. But if you go in the top 45 to 50, you've got a really strong profile. That's worthy in today's dynasty, today's running back position of going 101. So he did that. I think there's, on paper, really nothing that should concern you. And a lot of times, in a 16-teamer, the floor is what matters. He's got a big ceiling too. So I just think you can't look at gift horse. You can't kick it down the road and just be like, oh, well, I'll just get another crack next year. If that turns into 105, there's no guarantee you get a running back like this. You might end up taking a wide receiver with lower probabilities. I mean, when you have the opportunity to take a running back like this, and that's why I think Kenneth Walker, for example, going at 41 and some people passing all the way till I've seen him go 105, 106 in some of the, and it's just, It's nutty. It's nutty that you're going to be that picky. And I can pick apart Kenneth Walker if I want to pick nits. But I mean, again, I think we're getting too choosy, in my opinion. Just take profiles. And when you get a shot at that in the mid-first, amidst a lot of first-round wide receivers, that you may get a shot on another guy later in the first with another pick you have or something, that you just do it. And so I think Breece Hall, and this is, again, no access to results, but we're looking at historical trends, probabilities, and profiles, and it says take that guy. Take that guy, and especially within this class, when there's a bunch of wide receivers, and you've said before, try to pick the best one. Good luck. We got 5 or 6 of them. Who's going to be the best? Well, what we know is Jahan Dotson, a lot of people feel like he's not going to be the best. Why? Because he's the last one to go a lot of times. So that sometimes is your best bet because he still went in the mid first. Or Treylon Burks, he goes after a lot of the other guys. Well, who's to say, he was the wide receiver 1 for part of the conversation in the draft process. So, but the problem is, running back runs dry really quick, and Breece Hall is on paper the guy. So passing on that and 101 to 108, I mean, and no offense to Buffalo Nation, but you got to do better than Gabe Davis. If you're kicking the can from 101, I mean, at least get Khalil Shakir or something. So you've got to, I mean, at least get the other option attached, so you get it right. You get wide receiver 2 right in some capacity. But I think you need a stronger add-on. Like if you were able to get, for example, we talk about trades like this all the time. What if you were able to get Leonard Fournette in the 23 first? What if you're able to get Zeke in a 23 first? You have a chance to win this 2 ways, this year and in the future. So that's the part I have. You're just kicking it for a wide receiver and a guy that you hope pans out, hope has some upside. And he has no projectable easy path to being the wide receiver 1 on this team. These are concerning aspects in a format like this where just hit the double or triple. You might also hit a home run with Breece Hall. Just too easy. All right. So not to spend too much time, but that's a big one. We see people kick the can and don't get enough. And you're sitting there at 101 and you can say, no market. I really like Gabe Davis. You can spin it however you want, but it's dangerous. It's dangerous to do that type of stuff. Yeah. All right. We got Jonathan Taylor on the move in a 1 quarterback league. So did they get enough? Taylor and Brevin Jordan for Deontay Johnson, David Montgomery, Rashad Penny, 111 and 211.
No. They didn't get enough.
Okay. How do you make this better? What do they have to do?
Well, you need it to take here's a situation where you convert a future asset to a current asset to a future pick, right? Turn the 111 into a future first, right? That has the ability to break your way. The problem is that there's no star player on the other side, right? Like given
a star, not getting one.
Yeah, and it's just
no offense
in a 1 quarterback league, right? Because here's the thing that I think that this person probably was thinking, right? I always like trying to think about when you trade away a player like this, what are you thinking? And what you're worried about typically, and what I've seen is that people get worried about having a high-end running back because the shelf life is short. Hey, I don't want him to get hurt and him to die off on my roster, right? That's sort of the concern. And then my team will go down the toilet. I suffered from that early on in my dynasty career. My approach now is to totally flip the opposite way, which is to say, okay, I have this hammer, right? I have this trump card in Jonathan Taylor. I have a top, the top running back, and I have a top 3 projection at my running back 1 spot. Well, let's lean into that, right? Now we know that he might not be that forever. I mean, if he goes on for 5-6 years like Zeke Elliott and is that sort of thing, that's great. But we need to lean into it right now because these windows can close really quickly, and we might not even realize that the window's open before it closes, right? So I am a big fan of, instead of trading this a really high asset for future, to break it down and say, I need to build some depth, right? This is a situation where you lean directly into it and you contend, right? And you trade, bits and pieces for Fournette, right? You make those upgrades. You make the upgrade to Aaron Jones. You make the upgrade to other guys, right? This is where you go out and you actually target McCaffrey, right? You send this type of package for McCaffrey. I do not like these types of deals when you're going from core piece to non-core piece, right? I think that the way to fix this is to
you add Kelsey or you add Brady. Correct. If those are upgrades at the position,
absolutely.
You go after the veterans and you're getting a discount on that. It's not turn Taylor into, no offense. Yes. All these could perfect storm hit. Like you said, you trade 111 for Mike Evans or trade it for a future first. Deontay Johnson's a top 12 guy. David Montgomery's in the top 15. That's a lot of stuff. But Taylor at 23, and you're saying as an asset, you have this window that even if he gets hurt this year, that you have a window where he's age insulated. He has a number 1 season under his belt. And so you have a window that I was almost thinking the way you were going with that conversation is, well, if I build around him, the weeks I have Jonathan Taylor, if I have him for 10 weeks, I'm riding him. I have fresh legs, and I have a guy that was a workhorse in college. He's a workhorse in the NFL, such a proven profile. And so I have this window. Like, if I don't find the right package, even if there's quote unquote danger in holding him, he's still not 27. Like, if he was a 27-year-old and he was valued this highly, like Adrian Peterson, or we saw that years ago, Matt Forte maybe, but like that is a point where you go, oh my gosh, this is the time to get out. Like, he's valued so high about that. So it's the market but now he's 23 and valued like this. That's appropriate. So you can't just sit there and say, well, I have to leave. Like at 23, were you exiting Christian McCaffrey? I got to get out. I have to. No, like you shouldn't have that take on a specific player. Justin Jefferson, are you running for the hills? No, these are cornerstone assets and anchors. And so again, if you were able to go Jonathan Taylor and then you went like McCaffrey, Deontay Johnson and 111, like it's a different discussion. So it's the way you did it and the way that I think we have pause with each one of the assets you got and you sold for 50 cents plus 20 cents plus 15 cents. Like it still may add up to $1.50 or whatever, but it's not that top piece just has to be better. If that 111 was a lot higher, or something. I mean, what I'm saying is you got to do better because how many pieces are like Jonathan Taylor right now in Dynasty?
Not very many.
In one quarterback.
Right.
I mean, 5? 3? I don't know. I can count right here.
Right.
Like and if this was the best, you hold. That's what that says. If the market in your specific league is so illiquid, you just hold it, and that's okay.
And I'll just share. Someone sent in a comment, and I think it's perfectly appropriate for this. FFPC, I got Christian McCaffrey and Waller for Hawkinson, Gibson, Penny, and a future first. If I'm the Taylor owner,
same thing, right?
If I'm the Taylor owner, this is the deal that you make. You don't run scared from Taylor. You say, all right, I'm going to lean directly into this, right? I'm going to get a player in Waller who can move the needle for me more than Hawkinson can.
And now you're pairing Taylor and McCaffrey, and it's like, come at me. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm going to bludgeon people. I'm going to go out and I'm going to trade for, or Kelsey, right? You mentioned Kelsey. I think Kelsey is uniquely situated to help in a way that's, especially because he's dropping in price too. The problem is he's probably on a contending team. It's tough. Might be tough to actually get at him. But yeah, I mean, this is the type of deal. And again, Jordan from 3 years ago wouldn't do this deal. Jordan from 3 years ago, this is how I would approach Jonathan Taylor, because now's the time to win. Now's the time to get buys. Leverage that. Don't run away from it.
And there's not a lot of one quarterback leagues that are overly deep. I mean, I'm in one, but that's pretty rare. And so that's when you should really, so that's when we talk FFPC strategy, honestly, that's not a lot different than many of the one quarterback leagues that are 24, 25 man rosters. You've got to consolidate, condense, and just get the best players and improve your lineup anytime you possibly can. All right, let's do one more trade here. We got Superflex and tight end premium. Mark Andrews always makes you a little nervous in tight end premium. It's not too tight end, but still, you get the boosted scoring there. Mark Andrews, Marcus Mariota, and a third for Mike Evans and Darren Waller.
We were talking earlier about the Aaron Rodgers thing, and Cameron Poe. I should say Cameron Poe. We've made a rule. We got to call him Cameron Poe.
My rule, not yours.
Okay, all right. I'm not bound by it. Great. Maybe Evans is expendable now that they brought in Julio. Right, Evans is expendable. It's been my joke. How's
what do you think Julio goes for? Is there any buzz? What do you think? You've had him on your roster. What do you think in the next few days? A realistic best case on selling Julio. What do you think you can get?
You can get a third for him.
All right.
I'm going to lean right into Russell Gage. Right. If this plummets Russell Gage's cost, I'm like, yeah, I'm in.
You promised him to a third?
What'd you say?
Promised him to a third? I mean, his price probably isn't going down too much, but
yeah. So with this one, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of guys that we like in this deal, especially. I think I'm probably higher on Waller than you are. I'm taking Andrews. He's an elite piece and an elite. You were in a draft the other day, and we were discussing some picks, and I just kept saying elite pieces at rare positions, right? And I think that this is the deal with this. Is Andrews is just a. I love Evans, right? If Evans is a first ballot Hall of Famer guy tattooed on.
You don't say sell Evans much. It's hard for me to find a deal in this section of the show where you're like, yeah, Evans, you gone.
Right. Yeah. But this is one where I think you're getting such a huge difference maker at a premium position in a premium format that, I think it can really move the needle. And I think, there's a lot of different principles that you could do to get at. I mean, you could trade that third Mariota and you might be able to get back Brandon Cooks, right? Something along that line, or Tyler Lockett or someone like that can replicate something near the targets as you try and replace Evans. So yeah, give me Andrews just because I think he's more rare in this format.
Yeah, and you're getting a little younger. I think you're getting more of a centerpiece element. I am concerned when you mentioned you're a little higher on Waller than I am. That's true. I think Waller, with the Adams addition, with Hunter Renfrow, bring a different player than when we last saw Waller dominate that offense for a whole season. I just think it's going to be competitive for targets. So either Carr goes nuclear or, we see a step back from the ceiling. And I don't think with Andrews, we're projecting a step back in terms of ceiling. So yeah, I think the getting younger part, what are the Ravens doing in the passing game outside of Andrews? Major questions. And so as much as we like Evans, I do like your angle of saying we can replicate that. And for a guy that's 29, can we do that in the 27 to 32? I mean, you could get, for that third and Mariota, I mean, you could get Thielen and something else. Like you can go really cheap if you want to, like Thielen or Lockett, like you mentioned, Cooks, all roughly within probably a half a round of rookie draft costs. So I think you have ways to do that. And even if you don't get maybe the utmost ceiling of what Evans could do, you're still shopping in that veteran bucket, where I do think you fast forward a couple years and Andrews could still be very well insulated, and Waller at his age at a minimum won't be, and his situation might have changed quite a bit. We did have a question from the chat. So I wanted to address this. We got a keeper league question. And honestly, July, August, that's the time where people a lot of times declare their keepers. They're resetting their boards for their annual drafts. So it sounds like he drafted well last year. It's applicable because he has Mike Evans and Mark Andrews from this particular trade. So he can keep. And so again, it sounds like you maybe keep just one of them. That fourth round for CeeDee Lamb, I'm assuming that's Javonte Williams in the fourth, Mike Evans in the sixth, or Mark Andrews in the seventh. We don't talk keeper strategy a lot, but one thought I have is when you get to the mid rounds, I mean, you kind of just need to keep the best player, because whether you lose a fourth rounder or a sixth rounder or a seventh rounder, you're already having keepers out of it. And frankly, there's going to be a lot of variance on who people are picking anyway. So what are your thoughts on who to keep here? Good options overall.
Yeah, good job. I keeping Mark Andrews and keeping Mark Evans. I don't know if you can keep all of these guys. Like, I don't know if you could
just do an order of if you could keep one, and then if you could keep two.
I think I'd keep Andrews, Evans, Williams, and Lamb
In that order.
I think in that order.
Yeah, and we don't know if this means
Only
that you can
one
keep
guy
them.
says,
Okay, so we don't know if you could also, sometimes you can only keep a guy for 1 year, because let's say you keep Andrews, does that mean you could keep him maybe for a fifth next year, or does that mean now it kind of counts as your first round and he's unkeepable? So because Javonte Williams, if he rises up, I mean, he could be someone that could have a first round valuation in 2023. So that would be something just to keep in mind. But yeah, I would probably I usually go in reverse order. Only 1 year. So again, Mark Andrews, I think, provides you such a hammer at a position that's tough to fix. We've talked about it before. There might be only 3 or 4 teams that feel like they have the true, I'm starting 2 guys versus year 1. And even that, that even includes another team that might have TJ Hawkinson or Goddard or who knows, or even Pitts. We'll see if Pitts is on the outside looking in terms of what he actually produces this year. So Andrews, for that price, and I just think you're going to have an easier time addressing wide receiver than you are trying to get a tight end, and you're paying the cheapest price, so that makes it a little easier as well. So good question there from Daniel in the chat. Reminder for the 90+% that listen, via podcast, if you want to check out the live show, it is at 9:30 on YouTube. You can find that link. Jordan puts it out on Twitter on a weekly basis. But if you want to be a part of the chat and you want to submit questions, we try to mix a few in as applicable. So good job, Daniel. Very applicable as we go through here.
Anyone listening to the podcast, Chad has a beard too, so come on.
There you go. And you can play the Is Chad Sitting or Standing game. Always fun. And we have the daily email update from Joe Bryant, comes out every evening. And with the news of the last 48, 72 hours, you don't want to be left behind. There's a news feed at Footballguys, but that gets distilled with the analysis. You want to go to the free email update. I think it's over 600,000 now are on that email list that goes out every day. And so starting now through your fantasy and dynasty championships, you want to be a part of that. And I'm debuting. This is the first Jordan is hearing of it, but we talked about, what was it, the life minute in a previous show. Talked about how I was sore for 3 days from mowing a lawn, doing it 1950s style. But I call this one the dumbest thing I did this week.
Okay.
So I'm sure, again, we're middle-aged men, Jordan. We do lots of dumb things. Like there are sitcoms built around the aspect of guys do dumb things. Here's what I mentally committed to today. I've told nobody about this, but mentally I have to do it. So I am committing, and I think this is going to be an annual thing, to doing the NFL cardio test, because that's what NFL players do. And obviously I'm an idiot at 40 plus years old that I don't know how my body is going to take this. But I looked up online. I know that the Ravens have one of the strictest and one of the most difficult. It's amazing the wide range. They all have all teams do it a different way. Mm-hmm. It's obviously all based on running. Here's the easiest one I found, and it still sounds crazy difficult. And before we record next week, Jordan, I will have done this, and I'm going to video it. This is bad, though. Just think of this. You're not a runner either. I know, because I watched you when we met up at the Senior Bowl, quote unquote, run. You're not a runner. You did run then, and you've switched over to biking, aka mechanical advantage. So I'm more of a biker too, but I think I run more than you do. Anyway, so here's the Jets. No surprise, right? That's the one I chose. Here we go. And I can choose any. So I'm not choosing wide receiver, even though that's my build. I'm choosing the lineman one.
Okay.
And I'm trying to pass. The linemen run 20 40-yard dashes, 20, okay. And each must be measured in under 6 seconds. I run, for the record, 4.849. Like if I were to run full on. So I have some latitude as well. So I run kind of the speed of linemen, if you will. They run 5.0, 4.9, whatever, at 300 and some odd pounds. But anyway, so you have to run 20 40s, each of them under 6 seconds. There's a 30-second rest between each 40, which I'm sure will go very quickly. And the sprints are split into 2 sets of 10. So run 10, then you get this break of 3 minutes in between the 2 sets of 10.
All right.
So my idea is to measure out 40, and I'm going to go one way, then zipper back the other way, and we'll do, obviously 10 of those. I'll have a timer that measures out the 30 seconds. And I think just going to measure the 40s and then at the end, see if I got under 6 for all of them, do the best I can. But this sounds like it's the 20 part. I honestly thought it was going to read something like 10. So sometimes it's and what everyone's told me is the ones that are the hardest are the ones that it's like you have to start, stop. So it'll be something like you do 50 yards, but you have to go back and forth, or it's 20, 20, 20. So like when you start doing change of direction at a time, like 13 seconds, but you got to go 60 or 80 or whatever. Like that's the one that kills you. So this is a straight line. I've done 40s before. I'm confident, but it's the 20 of them. And it's the only 30 seconds break that really has me concerned.
I'll try it.
You're going to try this.
Yeah.
Now, what do you mean by try? Are you committed to running 20 of them, even if you're okay? So you will complete all 20, even if the last one's like 10 seconds.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to do this, and we'll submit results. Yeah. This is different than run, rich, run. It's not 140 in dress shoes. Like so. Right. Yeah, the main thing for me is I have to find the right time that it's okay if I'm really, really sore for multiple days afterwards. That's the one thing. You're going to do recovery bike rides, so I'm sure you'll be fine.
It'll be great.
You'll be fine. You'll be on the bike.
I'll do it. It'll be fun.
Getting the lactic acid out. So 20, 30-second break. Have you ever run a 40?
Yeah, I mean, when I was like in high school. Yeah.
For football? No, you weren't on the football team, were you?
I was, yeah.
Oh my God, this is a story for another day. Get on by the campfire. Listen to Uncle Jordan tell his stories of gridiron glory.
Yeah, I played football through a broken collarbone. It was fun.
Wow, look at you.
Yeah, it was. It was something. But yes, no, I think
so. You're 20 plus years removed from running a 40.
Yeah. What did I? 17. I think 17, 18 years ago. Yeah. So. Did you go mute on me? I think you hit the mute. I'm
back. All right.
There you go.
But don't run a 40 in the days leading up to it, though, because you'll be sore.
Yeah, no, I don't plan on.
I need to
training. I'm just gonna go
I think the key is this. You can't you have to be relaxed and don't push yourself, because that's what's going to gas you is if you have to full throttle or go 90% to get under 6.
Right.
The problem is having a feel as laymen's like us. What does 6 seconds feel like? We don't know. So
yeah,
that's the big part.
Yeah. I managed to race my bike this week and it was like 95 and miserable out, and I exploded pretty early. So I'm excited to see if I can redeem myself a little bit after that experience. So yeah, this will be fun.
Yep. All right. So there we go. That is the dumbest thing I did this week, which is say this in a public medium, meaning I have to do it.
Great. I'll do it with you.
And we'll check results. All right. Let's get back to football. Quotes from the Footballguys Dynasty Forum this week. I don't understand why people trade future picks this far out. That's your insurance and a piece you trade in season if it puts you into contention. Did you write that?
Sounds familiar. I mean, if you're like, this is the time of year that if you're going to spend future picks, it needs to be for elite pieces. And it typically, like, I reserve that for being upgrades at quarterback and at tight end, really, and tight end premium. Right. And so quarterback and super flex and tight end premium, there's some occasional spots here and there. We could do running backs and receivers, but by and large, I think, those premium positions and premium formats, that's really where I would like to attack. And don't trade future picks for if you haven't solved quarterback yet, right? Use those assets to do that before you start doing other things.
Yeah. And I think, trading it that far out, my typical answer is let's first try to do the trade a different way.
Right.
And like what you said, I mean, if that is the only facilitator to the deal to get that cornerstone quarterback, or to truly upgrade to one of the halves at tight end, to maybe get a blue chipper, like Justin Jefferson or something at wide receiver. There are exceptions to that. And trust me, there's ways that I've explored 3 or 4 things, and this is the only way they will do the deal. Then it's like, yes, do it. But yeah, that is your insulator. And that is your backstop to if things go wrong, or mainly it's a facilitator to making a deal when you truly need it or want it in the future. And when you give that up, you only have a finite number of, say, future firsts to get that done. I will say from Derek, super fan here, he said, I ran 10 yards to break up a dog fight at a dog park a few weeks ago, and I'm just starting to walk again because he's so sore. So I already loved you, Derek, but I love you more for breaking up the dog fight. But yeah, 3 weeks ago, again, I mean, if you do something out of your comfort zone, and I would say even depending on sport, if you usually play pickup basketball and suddenly you play, flag football or tennis or just a hockey, and you haven't done it in years, oh man, it's just a different muscle group. I mean, Jordan the biker would do circles around everybody, and then all of a sudden you put him in a different sport or a different event, and it's a completely different game. So yeah, you got to be careful with that. And we had one more question from the chat. John says, if you could pick any startup slot in a 12-team tight end premium draft, what would you choose?
I'm assuming that's super flex was my assumption as I read that.
Not often tight end premium and one quarterback. Yeah,
correct. Yeah, I'd pick a top 3 spot.
High. Exactly. High.
Yeah.
Right. And if you can't get that, I like the middle of the pack just because I'm an active trader. And I think it makes it easier when you're not as far away. It gives you more options to move up and down. And what I found in 2022, new environment, new world, that moving up is relatively affordable. A lot of people looking to move down. So in the first 2-3 rounds, again, if you have to move far, as Sesame Street goes, then it might be tougher to get someone to move down more than 4, 5, 6 spots. Otherwise, it could be an easy deal. So I like to be closer to maybe where I want to go, where I have an idea I want to go.
Yeah.
Incredible season last year in PPR from Hunter Renfrow. He now has a New England coach who rode the Welker Edelman years. What is wrong with that prognostication if you need a wide receiver?
It's a good question. I think a lot of people are asking it. Again, at his cost, I don't, right? This is all a matter of cost. I am in on Hunter Renfrow in the Scott Fishbowl, by the way.
What's his ADP? What's his general cost, if you will?
let's see here. I'm looking right now.
I know he finished in the mid-teens last year, so
in the
lots
past
of changing
month,
though.
40 wide receiver 46 has been his median in the past
All
month.
right, certainly palatable. He's older than people think,
Yes.
but one of those new jitterbug, sticky guys, tough to check on the inside of the field. But you got Devontae Adams. There's word that he's been moving all over the formation. You've got Darren Waller, and frankly, we have not seen an offense with those three guys on the field at once. I don't think we saw a ton of Waller and Renfro last season. We certainly didn't get 2/3 of the year. So again, what's going to happen there? And I still think it all kind of comes back to Derek Carr. Like Derek Carr feels
the best
like
offense in the league pretty easily, right? I mean,
it kind of has that feel.
Yeah, I mean, they've got. It's just like they ran 62.6 plays last year, ranked 13th in the league, right? And they dropped back to pass 40.5 points, 40.5 times per game. That was 9th. Like all of a sudden, like that number in a division that now has Russell Wilson in it, right? That has upgrades at a bunch of different spots. Including in Denver, right? Including a little bit different looking Kansas City offense, right? And with another full year of Justin Herbert, right? That they're the worst team in that division. They could throw the ball a ton, right? This could be a situation where you get a lot of balls going to a lot of guys. And that this offense is chucking the ball around quite a bit, just out of frankly necessity. So I'm actually excited for this. I think that there's they have a lot of outs, because if anyone gets hurt, I think there's outs. And if this kind of plays out, like I think it's going to play out, right? There could be a lot of shootouts in the AFC West this year.
Yeah, I like what you said too, which is if you have three guys and you're like, not sure, but if it consolidates down to two at any point in time, you could be talking about going nuclear. And I think Derek Carr, it's really weird. The more I look at it, it's the more where he's had one big season fantasy wise, when you look at the aggregate, adjusted points per game, but he feels like one of the easy answers. If you say career year's coming for quarterbacks, he's in that top 2, 3, 4, where you say it's a very reasonable possibility based on a lot of the things you said, the best weapons he's had, and the fact that we've seen it before, and he's mired in good land of quarterback, where we could see great production this year by necessity, but also by situation. We got one more here to finish it out. Until I see otherwise, Terry McLaurin is a better real-life player than fantasy player. Plus, he'll be 27 in September, so he's not as young as it feels he should be. He did come out at, I think, 23 out of Ohio State.
Yeah, it does seem like he is younger than that. I don't know. He's been pretty good. I think he's been the excitement of him from kind of coming off the radar to where he came like as a rookie, I think is kind of stuck with people, and maybe is actually better than he's been. I don't know how much. I think in that general range of the position, we can get a little. I think people can go over their skis in terms of trying to pick guys that are better than the other guys, right? I think there's a lot of that's an area where you trade down and you sort of arbitrage down at the position and you let other people make the bets, right? And I think it can be tough, right? But that's a place where we're being humble because there's so much variance in terms of wide receiver scoring. I think that would be sort of my suggestion around McLaurin. So if someone wants to pay for McLaurin and pay you a guy in the similar range plus, right, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the problem I have is, the ceiling hasn't come, and a lot of times, he's in a window where you could see a career year, but they keep adding. They just drafted a first-round wide receiver. Logan Thomas didn't play last year. That didn't help. It's not that Taylor Heineke wasn't functional. You get Carson Wentz, still a variable. You have good pass-catching running backs. It just seems like you're going to have a decent passing game that's spread way too thin across the board of targets that are good enough. Curtis Samuel wasn't healthy last year. So in my view, if it didn't happen last year, what makes you think now in a more competitive environment for touches, it's going to happen? His peak year in adjusted points per game is wide receiver 20. So and he's basically going there dynasty wise. So I don't like a mid-career guy. We haven't seen a bigger ceiling than where he's valued. And so I don't think it's egregious. I think he's a nice depth option, but I don't think anything that happens to your dynasty team over the next couple of years is going to be because of what McLaurin did positively. And that's the problem. You're kind of stuck in the middle, like you said. I mean, find an arbitrage, find value by moving up, moving down the board. Don't let McLaurin stop you, right? If you can get way up the board at a position and it's like, oh, well, you need to add McLaurin. Like, don't let that stop you. Correct. So that would be the type where, and I kind of agree with the sentiment they mentioned, which is he's older than you think. He's probably not as insulated beyond the next year or two than you think. It feels like he's been better than he actually has been. You can say it's situation, but you know what? He's had clear runs of windows to get more targets than he has, to produce better than he has. And I think I saw there was some survey, where it was ranking the NFL wide receivers, and it's kind of just a view of who's really tilting offenses. And McLaurin wasn't really viewed in that light of we're scared of this guy, like the big speed, the route running, the separate, like all this stuff, all the NFL toolsy stuff. NFL defensive coordinators and defenses aren't really scared of him. So, the double teams aren't going his direction. We'll see what happens. So I just think that he's one that it's tough to put him, like I have him, I think it's 5, 6, 7 spots below his ADP. And again, I think that's about right. I mean, I think you have to have him high enough because he's a solid guy. He's shown what he can do, but expecting out of the blue a top 10 season out of him, I think is unlikely. But yet we are not going to be surprised with another 2-3 years in the wide receiver 15 to 35 range. Right. That has the value in deeper leagues, especially. But I think it's easy to overcook those guys, as you said.
Yeah. Can we do a dramatic reading of the Kyler Murray thing? 45 seconds here.
Go for it.
The player shall complete, I can't even make it a sentence, at least 4 hours of independent study each week during the season. Independent study means the player studies material provided to him by the club in order to prepare for the club's upcoming game, including without limitation any such material provided via an iPad or electronic device. No mandatory meetings don't constitute it, and players shall not receive any credit for independent study with respect to any time periods during which any material is displayed or played on an iPad or electronic device if the player is not personally studying or watching the material while it's being played, or the player is engaged in any other activity that may distract his attention. For example, watching television, playing video games, or browsing the internet while such thing is being played.
Let's
$230 million contract.
Let's superimpose this to a sophomore in high school. What you just read applies directly to someone that's 12 years old as well. So I was in an independent study twice in high school, and it's because I was basically not going to pass AP chemistry or AP physics. So I slid on over to independent study and did a project on sand dunes, and I magically passed because I was my own grader basically, and just sat and goofed off for 90% of the semester. The fact that they're like, please, Kyler, please go home and do something, anything. I guess it's because speak to is just innate talent, right? That he can get by. Like if he's done none of that, they had to put this in the contract of like, we don't think he's doing this.
I think the best part about the contract isn't even the fact that they put it in there, but it's like, he had all this drama at the beginning of the season, but they put it in there and then they leaked it. The best part is that.
Right.
It's like,
if this goes sideways, we want you to know the minimum threshold that he did not achieve.
Right.
You must, and dare I say, you have to be this tall to write it. No, can't say that. Can't say that. But man, just 4 hours, Jordan, 4 hours. If you had 300-pounders that could run 4.8s coming at you to literally hinder your physical attributes for the rest of your life for 60 plus plays, don't you think you would study at least 4 hours to say, how can I have that go better than horrifically?
One would think,
especially if you were 5'11 and a half on a good day. Like, I know you've always been the fastest kid in the playground and the quickest kid, and you were never it in tag. But this is a very serious game of tag. 4 hours. I bet you between the plane ride home on Sunday night and by 9 a.m. on Monday morning, Peyton Manning already had 4 hours.
Yeah, right. And you hear stories about like Carson Palmer and stuff like that. Like, yeah, just crazy.
Jordan, I had questions on, does this make Kyler Murray elite with the new contract? Is this like, I mean, we should have a Twitter poll. Is Kyler Murray's contract a positive or a negative for his dynasty value? This is not joking. I mean, there are legitimate reasons to say this is a negative, not a positive, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Let's be serious. So a dramatic reading of Kyler Murray's contract. We can't be the only podcast that did that this week. But
probably not.
I only saw a couple of the blurbs. You read the whole thing. Impressive stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Is there eye tracking software? It specifically said you can't be doing other stuff. I mean,
there's definitely stuff.
The fact that you have to say that. You have to say that to a working professional in a field that has apparently achieved good results. Please just study for the upcoming exam. Please. I guess that just means how great he could be. Imagine. I guess the one thing I would ask you, Jordan, can you be his age and at his point in the NFL, and can he change his stripes? If he has done none of this until now, can you just flip the switch and because it says something in his contract, like be wired differently and do it?
I mean, you just got paid $230. Well, you're going to get paid $230 million. Is it going to change? I don't know. I mean,
if you're not wired that way, can you just do it?
I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
If you want to play Call of Duty and hang out and just because I process and see it on Sundays, don't worry about me, coach. Can you flip over and be a student of the game? You're smirking, so I guess we have your. You sound skeptical.
It's funny because I don't know. Cliff Kingsbury gets this sort of rep too, right? That he's not necessarily the most prepared guy. Again, you don't know if that's true, but like those things tend to trickle down, right? So I don't know. It's just it's interesting, and the funniest part of the whole thing for me is the fact that like he did all the stuff about deleting them from Instagram and all that stuff, and they put this in his contract and then leaked it. Like it's just such a we'll pay you, but we're gonna stick the knife in your back and twist it on the way out the door.
Great to have you, Kyler.
Right.
Here comes the knife as he exits. They probably press send right when he left. He's still in the elevator. It's already out. He's like, what?
Right.
Yeah.
By the time he gets back, he's already trending on Twitter.
Yeah. So this definitely felt like the week that honestly the season is here. I mean, I know we don't have games until next week. We're 8-9 days away. It's still a while before you're going to be setting a lineup. But the amount of news, the crackle in the air, it's all the way home. I mean, you're seeing training camp clips regularly on Twitter. So here we are. And we're getting legitimate news. We're tracking pup players. Gene Bramall, you're officially on duty as we go through here. So again, football guys, you never want to miss a moment. You want to stay on top with that daily email update and all the articles that are just going to deluge that you're going to see links to in the email and also on the site regularly as we close to week one. And again, it's going to be a busy week. I was thinking as you were talking that we're going to be like Gabe and Dwight with leg curls potentially next week. It's like we're seated. We're going to have to reposition the camera. We're laying down. You're never going to see us get up from our chairs because it's not possible. We'll see how that goes next week. But he commit. I didn't think you'd commit. I wasn't even asking you to commit, Jordan, to the cardio test. So you're always in. And so we're gonna have stories from our little baby gridiron environment that just is running in a straight line. So we might be a part of the Jets defensive line group. Who knows? By this time next week, we may get the call. Hey, 90 people are on the team. So in this episode, we talked about trading 101 to the future. Interesting discussion there. Jonathan Taylor, elite assets. Also talking about those critical NFC storylines. AFC will be up next week. And where will those big dominoes in the preseason, in the training camp fall? Last year, we had J.K. Dobbins. We had Cam Akers. Who will it be, and what will we be arbitraging? What will we be pivoting with our dynasty attention leading up to the season? So until next time, we got Jordan McNamara, Chad Parsons. Good luck in your dynasty leagues.